Hey World Division fans, this is Nashtaters. Welcome back to another episode of World Divisions. So today I actually want to touch up on a topic that has been on my mind for a very long time. I've covered this topic a couple of times already, but I think given the circumstances of what's going on in the rest of the world, especially in the gaming world, I think it's a time to go back and revisit this topic once again. With the 1 year EX Job 25 anniversary approaching very quickly, it is a good time to measure, is it beginner friendly game or is it not? Before we begin this topic conversation for today, let's go ahead and do a little bit of house cleaning. Now I know a lot of folks have been a little bit upset about the fact that Little Lita is being released at this specific time. Now, one of the viewership actually brought up the idea that this is roughly around the time that Halloween Lila should have been released according to the original JP timeline. So I think that kind of is fair in the sense that it's getting a rerun. Also, because it's a reissue, as they like to call it, we don't get the bingo board and we don't get access to more than 40 shards free by using free Visuals. So essentially it's just an opportunity for some folks to get the first copy, or for some folks to perhaps finish these units in the time that is presented right now. I think it's kind of fair in that sense. I don't think it's a trap banner per se, because at the end of the day, I don't believe these are traps, because if you wanted this unit a long time ago and there's something on your radar, you should go after them, no matter what the 1 year anniversary is going to bring. In fact, we already know what the 1 year anniversary is going to bring, right? It's going to bring Final Fantasy X. It may be, just maybe, one of those collaborations Mr. Hiroki has been talking about. Regardless of what they're going to be bringing, if you don't care about future units, then it doesn't make any difference to save right now. Go for the units that you like. Go for the vision cards that you like. Because ultimately, this is a game. I keep emphasizing it, and you should be happy because your decisions that you make should ultimately be the ones that you as an individual make. Now, let's go ahead and get into the topic at hand. Technically speaking, I could actually make this topic into a Friday Free Thinking episode. But today, I actually also wanted to cover some of the stuff that's presented in the shop. Because right now, I feel like it's possibly one of the better times to be playing this game as a beginner. If you started this game maybe a couple of months ago, or maybe even a couple of weeks ago, right now the game is moving in a different direction than perhaps a lot of players anticipated. And I'm going to show you what I mean by that. Right now, currently, the farm is on for one of the weapons, and it's actually being presented to us in the shop. And it's kind of weird that it's doing it this way, because essentially players have been complaining about this for an awful long time, and that is the grinding of weapons. Lohengrin currently is under farm, so if you don't want to farm all the materials, all the recipes, you can just straight out buy it for 2,000 Visuals. And here's the thing, when you're a beginning player, you get 2,000 Visuals straight up, and every 30 days you're going to be getting 2,000 free. And I think that is insane, because essentially what the game is telling you is you should be spending your first 4,000 Visuals on a Smart Code +5 and a Lohengrin +5. And I'm going to tell you why. Because Lohengrin right now is kind of an obnoxious farm. It takes an awful long time to farm on the regular mode, and most likely beginner accounts will not be able to conquer the brutal mode. So here's how it works. If you spend 2,000 Visuals, essentially what you're doing is you're passing up on 40 shards of some sort of unit. But if you're a beginning player, you shouldn't necessarily have to build too many units to begin with. If you're one of the lucky persons that perhaps got some units that you could utilize Lohengrin magic, you should be buying this. And I think a Smart Code barrier is actually one of the better items in the entire game. Magic is always very powerful in this game. Magic users do a lot of damage. So having a barrier Smart Code is actually a good way to do this, because essentially you're starting to defend against some of those magical attacks. The Platinum Mace and Defies Lacerda, in my opinion, are not worth buying at this specific in time. The reason being is Platinum Mace is very hard to maximize, and chances are, if you have someone like, say, Eldyra, or in fact, if you went for Halloween Little Lila, maybe, just maybe, the Healing Mace is a better option. It is much easier to max, and in my opinion, a little bit easier to farm as well. And this is coming from someone who owns both Platinum Maces and Healing Maces, Eldara, and Halloween Leela. Defies Lacerda, in my honest opinion, you should be building the barrier version, because the shield version only gives you a +8 defense, which isn't a whole lot. You can actually get way more defense from other items. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of the units that could best take advantage of the Lohengrin. The one that comes to mind will be, of course, if you already have this unit on your account, will be Howlet. Howlet is a Rune Knight, so he can best utilize that sword, both using it for magical damage and of course slash damage. And I think that's where Rune Knights kind of shine. They definitely utilize both slash and magic. Another unit obviously I do not own will be, of course, the Zombie Ryu that's currently on the banner. So if you wanted that unit, consider purchasing the Lohengrin, especially if you're a beginning player. Other units in this game that can good utilizing the sword would be, say, Spellblades, because Spellblades a lot of time actually utilize magic as some of their magical attacks, so therefore they can actually utilize that weapon fairly well. Another good unit, a solid unit that you could be building are representations of Red Mage, will be in this case Miranda, or you can actually go look at another MR unit in terms of Edelar. Now Edelar actually is a very high quality unit, even though he's under the MR rarity tag. Because of the fact that he is very durable, he's actually considered one of the better units to be utilizing perhaps the sword. Now if you're actually going all the way down to an SR unit, the Red Mage version of Murmur is actually highly loved by a lot of the player base. And because this unit is very good. She does very good damage, and because she's part of the Three Sisters, she actually has a lot of resistances. And because of the fact that she has a lot of resistances, you can actually make her immune to full magic attack and perhaps even full strike damage. If you really want to concentrate on the other three in terms of resistances, you can still make her very tanky in that sense. Her biggest weakness is the fact that she doesn't have a lot of hit points, and it makes sense. If she had tons of hit points and high resistances, she'll be literally unkillable. In order to balance the fact that she has so much resistance, the designer decided to take away a lot of her hit points. And that's perfectly fine, because a lot of the gear in this game, you can actually start padding some of her HP pool. Now, the way I look at it is, the Lohengrin is very good for a lot of units in this game. So I think it's a very good value in terms of spending your Visuors. As I always say, this game is essentially a micromanagement of resources. Units being resources, vision cards being resources, equipments, and espers. They're all actually part of your resource pool, believe it or not. So the best way to actually balance your account is to make sure you get the most value out of everything that you spend. So here is my final recommendation. If you're a beginning player who's been playing for a couple of weeks, a couple of months maybe, or you're thinking about playing this game, here's how I look at it. If you decided that you don't want to buy the Lohengrin, that's actually fair, because you can actually be farming it right now. What else will you be doing playing this game, right? You can actually just perhaps build one solid unit to maybe in the 70s or high 80s. You can actually start joining some multiplayer, or maybe you can host multiplayer. Right now, if you're hosting multiplayer, you actually can get a hosting bonus, and you have an opportunity to perhaps get extra recipes or extra materials during the time you're hosting those rooms. And you also control who's joining a room in that sense. Therefore, most likely you can do a lot of farming by spending your own energy. The other option is just buy it outright to save you a lot of time. But because of the fact that you don't have a whole lot to do as a free-to-play player, my recommendation is perhaps contemplating farming it and then simply spending some of your Visuors to buy the Smart Code. Because right now we don't have an opportunity to farm the Smart Code. Smart Code most likely will be something you will definitely need to have multiple copies of for the future. And I think the way this game is progressing is, even though we used to talk about how +2s could be very viable in this game in terms of the numbers here for your equipment, actually giving us the opportunity to purchasing for 2,000 Visuors of a +5, it's just such a good deal. And even if you are not a beginning player, like you're an intermediate player or you're a hardcore veteran player, buying multiple copies of some of these is definitely going to be adding a lot more power to your account. Now I want to actually end this video with my summons, because, well, you know, people love to see summons. My actual goal for this video, hopefully, is to get, well, Sakura, because that's the only unit that I need right now. So let's see what happens. Brown book. Wow, that's not looking too good. I probably should just hit, you know what, let's just hit skip. Remember folks, never judge a book by its cover. I think this is a great time to be playing this game. And most likely, we're going to be getting a lot of free things during the 1 year anniversary. And I think that's great for beginning players and veteran players alike. Also, definitely think about Lohengrin as one of your first MR weapons to actually build or just simply straight out buy. Just bear in mind though, you still have to farm a lot of books. So if you did decide to buy the Lohengrin, at least spend your time wisely by farming the books. Essentially, that's still something that requires a lot of grinding in this game. I think being a beginning player is an exciting time, and I think it's going to be a great time. And I know there's a lot of distraction currently right now, with a lot of games being out really in Japan, and a lot of future games coming in global, and of course, just too many games on the market as is. But I still feel like World Visions is still one of those high potential, high performing games that Square Enix and Gumi can really do a lot of development on. So, until next time, take care of yourself, all your loved ones, Nashtaters and his family out here. Take care.